Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another video. Today, I'm here to settle the debate between 100 men versus one gorilla once and for all. Now, I am on the side that 100 men could defeat the gorilla. You just have to pick the 100 men wisely. And today, I'm gonna go over uh, two fighters from each division. One that I would pick if there were 100 copies of that fighter to beat the gorilla, and one from that same division that I would never pick to defeat the gorilla, even if there are 100 copies of said fighter. I'm going to talk about two fighters starting from flyweight all the way up to heavyweight, and without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. So, from the flyweight division, there aren't that many options to choose from, but if you are to choose one fighter to represent the 100 men, it's gonna be Alexander Pantoja. Alexander Pantoja, he is the most well-rounded fighter in the flyweight division. He's got really good jujitsu and grappling, as well as a granite chin, which is very important against a gorilla. And also, he does pack a punch in his striking. So I reckon that Pantoja, over the course of 5 rounds, he'll be able to figure out how to defeat the gorilla, whether he takes the back of the gorilla or just bombards the gorilla with strikes. I do worry that Pantoja can get cracked by the gorilla because the gorilla is probably way more powerful than any other flyweight than Pantoja has faced. But again, I think 100 of them will be able to survive long enough to pressure the gorilla to where the gorilla will be either submitted or TKO'd, especially over the course of 5 rounds. So I'm going to say that Alexander Pantoja should be the representative from the flyweight division. Now, as for the fighter I would not pick from the flyweight division, it's gotta be Steve Erceg. Listen, I love Steve Erceg, but unfortunately, his style does not translate to effectively beating up a gorilla. Steve Erceg just likes to point strike, and he only uses grappling defensively. I don't think that is a good now to fight against, especially for a gorilla. We've seen something, I guess, not similar, but we've seen Car France drop Steve Erceg with one punch. I'm definitely sure that the gorilla will punch one Steve Erceg, and that Steve Erceg will fly into 10 other Steve Ercegs and knock them out as well in the process. And as much as I love Steve Erceg, I don't think Steve Erceg has the attributes or the physical traits to defeat the gorilla. So over the course of 5 rounds, I think all of the Steve Ercegs are gonna get knocked out by the gorilla. Moving on to the bantamweight division. Again, this is very difficult because there aren't that many bantamweights I would choose to represent 100 men. But if I had to choose one fighter, if there were 100 copies of said fighter, I would go with Peter Yan from the bantamweight division. Peter Yan, he's the most skilled bantamweight fighter on the roster. It doesn't mean he's the best. I'm just saying he has the most, like, he has the deepest set of tools. And I think that level of skill will overwhelm the gorilla in some way, shape, or form, whether it be the Osotogari trip or some fucking high guard shit with his boxing. So I reckon that Peter Yan, 100 of them will be able to figure something out. The first 5 minutes, I do worry for them because, again, Peter Yan isn't the type to really move actively. But once Peter Yan, he like defends enough of the shots and just gets into rhythm, I think Peter Yan will be able to download the gorilla's patterns. And as for the fighter from the bantamweight division, I would never pick to represent the 100 men. I'm gonna go with Henry Cejudo. I just think Henry Cejudo's too small for the gorilla, and which is kind of crazy to say considering I didn't even say that for Pantoja. But Henry Cejudo, he doesn't have a grappling threat. Like, I know he's an Olympic gold medalist and he is a former two-weight division champion from of the UFC. I don't think Cejudo has enough of the striking power, nor does he have a jiu-jitsu threat to effectively end the gorilla over the course of 25 minutes. If anything, Cejudo primarily only uses his wrestling as a defensive tool, and on the feet, he's not this one punch knockout guy like Pantoja is. He is more of a go with the flow, point strike karate type of fighter, and I don't see that working against the gorilla, especially at Cejudo's frame, which is like what 5'4" or 5'5". Over the course of 25 minutes, I can see all the Cejudos just failing single legs and eventually getting ragdolled, and I don't think that is gonna be op. This is an optimal matchup for Henry Cejudo in the slightest, which is why I'm not picking Cejudo to represent us as the even if there are 100 Henry Cejudos. Moving on to the featherweight division, Gene Silva. I think this is pretty obvious because Gene Silva, he will fight like a madman out there. If this were in an enclosed space with a cage, Gene Silva is climbing the cage and dropping 12 to 6 elbows onto the gorilla's dome. Uh, he'll also probably bite the gorilla. I could see that definitely happening. I don't know. You never know what Gene Silva is gonna do. o- Other than the fact that Gene Silva is going out there to hurt his opponent. And I think 100 Gene Silvas will be able to get the job done against one gorilla because the gorilla will not know what hit him. Like Gene Silva, he's gonna hit him with like so many flashy techniques and just like try to high five him. The gorilla's gonna fall for that shit because let's be honest, the gorilla, it's not like he knows like combat discipline or anything like that. And I can see Gene Silva being able to catch the gorilla with like shots that the gorilla never sees coming. And if there are enough of them, I can see the 100 Gene Silvas being able to TKO the gorilla over the course of 5 rounds. So yeah, I'm gonna say that 100 Gene Silvas it will be able to defeat the gorilla, no problemo. And as for the fighter from the featherweight division, I will not pick. We have Yusuf Zalal, marathon runner over here, Forrest Gump. He is not beating the gorilla, even if there were 100 copies of Yusuf Zalal. Yusuf Zalal, I think, will do well in the first 2 rounds where he's just pitter pattering shots against the gorilla. Before in the third round, he's just gonna start running away once the gorilla realizes, hey, this guy don't hit for shit. I can just press up against him, and there's nothing that Yusuf Zalal can do. Once that happens, I can see Yusuf Zalal. He's not gonna fight. He's just gonna start sprinting marathons over here, and ultimately just he's just gonna give up too much time for the gorilla. I think the gorilla is typically faster than the human when it comes to running. So if running is your best attribute, then I don't think that's gonna end well for you, Yusuf Salal. And I can see the gorilla just ragdolling you guys within the fourth round or late in or early in the fifth round. Moving on to the lightweight division, I'm going to submit the kangaroo. Listen, Baza. Gorilla have a good striking, but nobody check the grappling. Islam Makhachev, I think he's the pretty obvious choice in this situation. If there are 100 Islam Makhachevs, I'm definitely sure they can find some sort of submission, maybe like a fluke darce choke against the gorilla. I just think that gorilla will not be tested in the grappling, and Islam Makhachev will be the one to test the gorilla in the grappling. And on the feet, yes, potentially the gorilla will be able to KO Islam Makhachev, but I don't think Islam Makhachev is gonna play around like that. I think immediately Islam Makhachev's gonna shoot for the legs, and in if enough Islam Makhachevs shoot for the legs, I think the gorilla will be taken down. And once the fight hits the ground, the gorilla will not have anything for Islam Makhachev, in my opinion. Which is why I'm gonna say that 100 Islam Makhachevs will be able to hold down the gorilla and ultimately submit him within 5 rounds. Now, as for the fighter, I would not pick to represent 100 humans or 100 men. Benil Dariush. Listen, I like Benil Dariush, but no offense, your chin is cooked and you are not beating the gorilla, buddy. Benil Dariush, again, he just takes too long to get things going. And I think by then there's going to be too many casualties on the Benil Dariush side. Like the gorilla will have no patience for the dad bod and the dad strength. And over the like, if this fight does go past the third round, yeah, I can see Benil Dariush edging out a decision. But the gorilla will have no patience and will just charge right at Beneil Dariush. He'll knock one Beneil Dariush out and then use that Beneil Dariush to knock out like 20 other Beneil Dariushes within the span of 40 seconds. And I don't see Beneil Dariush really being able to amount any offense in time. Beneil Dariush likes to take his time trying to get used to the rhythm and just warming his body up. Unfortunately, the gorilla will come berserk out of the gate and sleep out almost half Beneil Dariush's within the first 2 minutes. So, unfortunately, Beneil Dariush, I would not pick him even if there were 100 copies of him to fight the gorilla. Moving on to the welterweight division, we have Shavkat Rachmanov. Now, am I just glazing Shavkat Rachmanov? Yes. But realistically, who in the welterweight division would you pick to defeat the gorilla? Ian Machado Gary? No. Bilal Muhammad? Is he gonna defeat the gorilla? Probably not. What about JDM? Maybe. Maybe the JDM can, but I think Rachmanov, he's the most well-rounded fighter in this division. Like, he beat Ian Machado Gary with his striking and just by clinching him up against the fence. And I think enough Shavkat Rachmanovs will be able to replicate that mid performance against the gorilla. Now, the gorilla will probably knock out a few Shavkat Rachmanovs in the process, but over the course of 5 rounds, I can see that Shavkat having more success with the double legs as the fight progresses. And once the fight hits the ground, again, the gorilla will have nothing to offer, and Shavkat Rachmanovs will be able to submit or TKO the gorilla within the third or fourth round. So I'm going to say Shavkat Rachmanov, if there were 100 of him, I would say that he would be able to destroy the gorilla without any issue. And as for the fighter, I would not pick even if there were 100 copies of said fighter. Colby Covington. This guy doesn't do anything other than fail single legs nonstop, and his only attribute is for being tough. I don't think that's gonna work against a gorilla. You're probably gonna get knocked out by the gorilla. Like, the gorilla will have zero patience for the slow pace of Colby Covington. And Colby Covington, he's gonna need more than like what 3 rounds in order to build himself up into the fight. I can see Colby Covington as soon as he gets hit, he might quit. He might quit on the stool, or like he's just gonna get battered in the face. Like, there's nothing Colby Covington can do. He doesn't have the most aggressive striking. It's not like he has a submission threat on top of his wrestling. And over the course of 5 rounds, is Colby Covington able to hold down the gorilla? Probably not. Therefore, I can see the gorilla just easily destroying Colby Covington within the third round or so. Now, moving on to the middleweight division, because I don't care. I smash everybody. Hamza Chimaev, if there are 100 Hamza Chimaevs in the middleweight division, I would say that that would be enough to defeat the gorilla. I think 100 Hamza Chimaevs will have no fear against the gorilla and just charge straight at him before uh, getting him down to the ground and ultimately securing some form of submission. Now, it should be noted that if the gorilla is able to survive all of these submission attempts, maybe the Hamza Chimaevs might be gassed, but at the same time, Hamza Chimaevs, I don't think will be able to get this fight past the second round, because the first round, I think Hamza Chimaev will just ragdoll the gorilla to the ground and ultimately submit him or ground and pound TKO him, especially if there are 100 of them. So I'm going to say that Hamza Chimaev, if there are 100 Hamza Chimaevs, he will be the answer to defeating the silverback gorilla. And as for the fighter from the middleweight division, I would never pick Abus Magomedov. Now, if Michel Pereira were still to be ranked, I would go with Michel Pereira, but unfortunately, Michel Pereira is no longer ranked. So the next closest option to Pereira is Abus Magomedov. Abus Magomedov, outside of the first 2 minutes or so has nothing to offer to the gorilla. And even in the first 2 minutes, it's not like he's gonna throw crazy output on the feet. Abus Magomedov is just gonna primarily stick to range, throwing his kicks as if that's gonna work against a silverback gorilla that has longer arms and like your legs. And unfortunately for Abus Magomedov, it's not gonna look too good for him once the fight hits the second round, where the gorilla is just gonna start picking up the pace, because he's probably gonna be annoyed that Abus Magomedov is holding him down nonstop for the first round, and by the second round, again, Abus Magomedov, his cardio is abysmal, and the gorilla will be able to capitalize and ultimately ragdoll him within 3 rounds. So yeah, Abus Magomedov should never represent the 100 men, even if there were 100 copies of him. Moving on to the light heavyweight division. Uh, uh, Shama. Alex Pereira, I think this is a pretty obvious choice for the light heavyweight division. I don't think anyone has the knockout ability that Alex Pereira has. Like, listen, I know he lost to Magomed Ankalaev, but Magomed Ankalaev doesn't get consistent knockouts like Alex Pereira does. And if I had to bet on a fighter from the light heavyweight division that can knock out a silverback gorilla, I don't think there's any better choice than Alex Pereira. Not saying that he would or could, but he has the best chance. And especially if there are 100 Alex Pereiras, I think they will be able to set up the left hook within 5 rounds and just knock out the gorilla like that. And ultimately, I don't think the gorilla will be able to capitalize on the lack of Pereira's striking defense, and he'll just get knocked out before he can implement anything. And as for the fighter, I would not pick from the light heavyweight division, Johnny Walker. Now, if Anthony Smith did not retire, I would include Anthony Smith, no doubt. But Johnny Walker is the next in line because the dude has no chin. A gust of wind can knock out Johnny Walker. Like, if you were to tell me that the gorilla punched one Johnny Walker, I think that punch will send one Johnny Walker flying into 10 other Johnny Walkers, and those 10 other Johnny Walkers will find themselves cold on the canvas. Therefore, I believe that Johnny Walker will not be able to survive against the gorilla. I suspect a round 2 TKO against the 100 Johnny Walkers. And the gorilla should be able to destroy the Johnny Walkers with relative ease. Moving on to the heavyweight division. I think this is pretty obvious. Tom Aspinall, there's no other choice. Tom Aspinall, I think he's too fast for the gorilla, and if there are 100 Tom Aspinalls, I think they'll just be able to blitz the gorilla without the gorilla even recognizing what is going on. And Tom Aspinall, I think he'll be able to, even if the fight hits the ground, he'll definitely be able to secure some kind of submission or just ground him out TKO. I think 100 Aspinalls is the number one choice to go with. He has incredible knockout power. He's super fast, and his grappling game is pretty good as well. So over the course of 5 rounds, I suspect that Tom Aspinall, especially 100 of them, will be able to get the job done with relative ease against the silverback gorilla. And last but not least, for the heavyweight division, we have Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa, he doesn't train. He doesn't train whatsoever, and I think that's going to cost him in a potential matchup against a silverback gorilla. 100 Tai Tuivasas doesn't change the fact that the gorilla now has 100 punching bags. 100 Tai Tuivasas is not going to do much of anything against the silverback gorilla. It's not like Tai Tuivasa has this wrestling game to fall back to if he gets outstruck on the feet. And I suspect that the gorilla will see this more as a workout session than an actual fight. So yeah, Tai Tuivasa, as much as people do like him, I don't think he has the tools to defeat the gorilla over the course of 5 rounds. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below if you generally agree with my opinions about these fighters as to whether or not they can take on the gorilla or not. But other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.